Jimmy Butler, Nikola Jokic, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Paul, Luka Doncic, Jalen Brunson, Stephen Curry, Jason Tatum, Brandon Ingram, Ja Morant, Jaylen Brown, DeAndre Ayton, Kyrie Irving, Pascal Siakam, Desmond Bane, Jordan Poole, Brandon Clark, Karl Anthony Towns, Joel Embiid, James Harden, Tyrese Maxey, CJ McCollum, Anthony Edwards, Donovan Mitchell, Klay Thompson, and Nikola Vucevic. Now, you may be asking yourself, why did I just name 26 random NBA players with absolutely no context? Well, they're not random. These are all the players who have outplayed Kevin Durant in the first round of the NBA playoffs. I've seen a lot of things in my day, but never, ever did I think I'd see the day where Brandon Clark outperforms Kevin Durant in the playoffs. And yet here we are. After being held as the favorites coming into the 2022 NBA season, the Nets have been bounced out of the playoffs in a first-round sweep thanks to arguably the worst playoff series of Kevin Durant's career. Is this the worst playoff run we've ever seen from an NBA superstar? Or is Durant just the latest addition to a long list of all-time greats with all-time playoff meltdowns? Today's video is brought to you by SeatGeek. SeatGeek is a ticketing app that makes buying tickets faster and easier than ever before. And with the NBA playoffs in full swing, SeatGeek is here to get you in on the action. Just download the SeatGeek app and use the promo code JIMMY to get $20 off your first order. By using their interactive map, you can search through venues to instantly find the best deals. If it's green, then you're looking at a good deal. Red? Not so much. I've been using SeatGeek for years, and once you use it, you'll never want to go back to anything else. It's simple, it's easy, and it's a surefire way to get the best deals for your tickets. Whether it's a concert, basketball game, football, baseball, festival, SeatGeek's got it all. Download the app, use promo code JIMMY, and get $20 off your first order today. The date is May 7th, 1995. The Chicago Bulls are facing the Orlando Magic in the second round of the NBA playoffs. Michael Jordan had just returned to the NBA 6 weeks prior after his first retirement and was still shaking off the rust. The Bulls knew the Magic were going to be a tough matchup, but at the time, no one knew just how dominant this Magic squad was. Only 27 years later can we look back on this game and say that it would go down as the worst playoff performance in Michael Jordan's entire career.
To one, finishing off Charlotte on Thursday night. Jordan clocking the clock. Shot clock down to 6. Michael Jordan not able to hit. Oh, Jordan slicing through, and that is rejected.
And didn't get one there.
Michael Jordan. Tipping Kukoc, long way up front. Jordan and Armstrong at the guard. Michael Steele.
And that's his favorite spot on the floor for that spot-up jump shot. Shot it very well.
Jim Gray over at the Chicago bench telling us that Jordan. Chicago, under 3 minutes to go in the third. Jordan did not have the shot. Jordan. Now Grant over to help. And Grant with the steal. And Jordan spinning his way against Anderson. For Grant. The Magic are on 6 and 2 seconds to go.
19 points. 8 turnovers, 36% from the field, and 0 for 2 from 3. The worst playoff stat line of Michael Jordan's career. The Bulls went on to lose this game, and Michael ended up with a game score of 2.6. An average playoff game score from an average NBA player is about 8, which means that for a single game, Michael Jordan played considerably worse than an average player. On that night, MJ wasn't the best player on the court, or the second, or third, or fourth. In fact, Michael had one of the worst games of anyone that suited up that night. This is the first, and probably last time you'll see MJ at the bottom of any sort of list on this channel. And I bring up this infamous 1995 playoff game because after seeing Kevin Durant play in this year's playoffs, I began to wonder, how bad can things truly get for an NBA superstar? It's one thing to miss some shots, get on a bad run and find yourself struggling to get out of it. It's a completely different thing to collapse for an entire playoff series as your team gets swept out of the first round of the playoffs. In Durant's 14-year NBA career, I have never seen him play or even act like this on the court. KD was playing so bad that I was genuinely wondering if he was dealing with some sort of serious injury. Are KD and Kyrie beefing or something? Did Durant bet against the Nets in this series? I'm being serious, those are genuine questions. I've never seen Durant look so hesitant and disengaged and just off. The last time we saw KD in the playoffs, he was averaging 35 points, 11 rebounds, and 5 assists a game, while carrying the Nets and nearly taking down the eventual champs in the Bucks by himself. What happened? Just take a look at KD's playoffs numbers throughout his career. There's a steady increase in production and efficiency for over a decade. Even last season, at 32 years old, after not playing basketball for a year, his numbers were still off the charts. Now, here's his scoring numbers from this year's playoffs. I'm looking at a cliff right now. From the Kevin Durant we all know and love, to this player that seems so unsure in himself and his abilities. We all watched this series unfold and we saw just how bad he was playing. But the extent of his troubles goes much further than you may think. The Nets are the only team that didn't win a single playoff game in this year's playoffs. This is the same team that was favorited to win the finals at the start of the season. Well, almost the same team, with the subtraction of James Harden and the addition of Ben Simmons.
He doesn't have the heart. This guy doesn't have it. There's no dog in it. There's no dog. There's no dog in the guy. He's soft.
But I asked myself, is this the worst playoff run from a superstar ever? There's been some bad showings over the years. Playoff series that made us question the entire legacy of a player, monumental choke jobs. But was Kevin Durant's first round series against the Celtics one of the worst we've ever seen from an all-time talent? Well, I checked. I searched through hundreds of playoff series by some of the greatest players in NBA history, and the answer may not be what you expect. Okay, so here's a chart of the worst playoff performances by all-time greats over the last 40 years, with game score on the y-axis and net rating on the x-axis. Now, I only included seasons once a player reached their prime, and immediately there's some key points that jump out. This region, right here, is the legacy tarnishing region. If a player has a playoff series that lands them in this region, it will inevitably lead to harsh criticisms of that player and their abilities as a whole. Within this region, you'll find a handful of the worst playoff series by some of the greatest players of all time. But you know what series you won't find in this region? LeBron's 2011 finals against the Mavericks, one of the all-time biggest playoff meltdowns in NBA history, and it's not even close to one of the worst series by a superstar that we've ever seen. Here's Stephen Curry's 2016 finals performance, where after winning the first and only unanimous MVP in league history, Curry had an absolute meltdown in the finals. His team blew a 3-1 lead, and to this day, he hasn't heard the end of it. As monumental as LeBron's collapse was in 2011, Curry's collapse in 2016 was even worse. Or what about Kobe Bryant's disastrous performance in the 2004 NBA Finals, where in his prime, Kobe averaged just 22 points per game on 38% shooting from the field and a dreadful 17% shooting from three for the series. The Lakers nearly got swept by the Pistons, winning just one game in the series, and Kobe would walk away from those 5 games with the worst playoff stretch of his entire career. This was one of the worst playoff series by a superstar in league history. But somehow, Shaquille O'Neal matched this piss-poor performance with a meltdown of his own in the 2006 NBA Finals. With Dwayne Wade carrying the load for the Miami Heat, Shaquille O'Neal had the worst stretch of playoff games in his entire career. 14 points and 10 rebounds a game, while shooting just 29% from the free throw line and being an all-out liability on defense. His average game score throughout this 6-game series, 9.6. Literally equal to that of an average performance by an average NBA player in the finals. The man scored 5 points in Game 2 and just 9 points in Game 6. This series should have been a huge black mark on Shaq's legacy, but it's not. 16 years later, and no one even remembers the fact that Shaq was getting benched in the NBA Finals. But wait, it gets worse, because back in 2014, Dwayne Wade put together the worst finals appearance by a superstar in modern NBA history. 15 3 and 3 a game on 43% shooting and finishing the series with an average game score of just 7.9 and a net rating of -7.8. A series this bad in the finals kind of makes you wonder how a performance like this went free of virtually any criticism. Maybe in the moment Stephen A. Smith spouted out a well-worded monologue, but that's about it. 8 years later, and this series collapse from Dwayne Wade might as well have never even happened. And believe it or not, there have been multiple superstars that virtually never had a bad playoff run. Here's Tracy McGrady's worst playoff series against the Jazz in 2007. Here's Dirk's worst playoff series against the Rockets in 2005. Larry Bird and Kawhi Leonard have never had a bad playoff series once they entered their prime. And with impossibly great consistency is Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan, pretty much being the best all the time no matter what. So, if these are the worst playoff series by some of the greatest players of all time, where does Durant's round 1 series against the Celtics land? Well, right here. Far from some of the worst playoff runs we've ever seen. Did Durant have a good first round series? No, far from it, especially by his standards. But let's look at the big picture here. The man averaged 26, 7, and 6 a game and nearly had a 40-point triple-double in the closing game of the series. Now sure, we're used to seeing even more from Kevin Durant, and the fact that the Nets got swept out of the first round certainly doesn't help his case. But I mean, which is worse? Putting together a masterpiece of a choke job in the finals with a championship on the line, or getting bounced out of the first round of the playoffs long before you even had a shot? If you think this is the worst meltdown from a superstar in the playoffs, I've got some news for you. It's not even close. If this is the worst that we've ever seen and will ever see out of Kevin Durant, then it's a whole lot better than what we've seen from other all-time greats. Kobe was a shell of himself in a final series that nearly ended up in a sweep. Shaq was getting benched in the NBA Finals. But because the Miami Heat walked away with the championship thanks to Dwayne Wade turning into God himself in a Heat jersey, Shaq's performance got swept under the rug. Back in 2010, Kevin Garnett averaged just 10 points per game against the Orlando Magic in the Eastern Conference Finals. But the Celtics still won in 6, so I guess we'll just act like that never happened. Don't get me wrong, seeing Kevin Durant go 0 for 10 in the second half of a playoff game almost feels like some sort of dream. Like I should be waking up any moment now. Watching Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving default to Bruce Brown in the playoffs might just be the least likely thing I'd ever thought I'd see on an NBA court. But the fact is, no matter how good a player is, no matter what legacy they've spent years building, every single player has had a playoff run they wish they could get back. A series where they wish they could hit the reset button on and get another chance at. And this round 1 series just happens to be Kevin Durant's. Hope you all enjoyed. And as always, until next time.